Hey and howdy everyone. A while back I shared this cute little, it's kind of like a mini folio, and it's made just with cardstock, so there's no chipboard cover with this. It is made using 110-pound cardstock, so it is fairly solid. And unfortunately, I did a walkthrough, but I didn't film the process, and I had a number of requests for a tutorial for this. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate it to the best of my ability using some different paper. So I am going to use this Marrakech paper pad. It's a hot buy paper pad. I bought it from Michael's, and I am just going to pull out like 11 or 12 pages maybe, and we will go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to need to do is to create our base for this folio. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some more black 110-pound cardstock and get started. So the base of this album or folio is just this part here, and then the rest of this was all attached to it. So to create this, I just took a single piece of the black 110-pound cardstock and scored. So I want each of these to be just a little bit better than 5. I'm going to go ahead and use my scoreboard, and I'm going to use this because it's very thick. So I want it to be a little bit better than 5, so I'm just going to move this out just a little bit, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to move it out a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to put this to the side for now. And I'm just going to fold and burnish. So as you can see, this is a pretty solid cardstock. So that's the base of it right there. So the next thing that we want to do is we are going to create all of our folds. So as you can see, these fold in just like this, and they are about 5 inches, and then the other inch we're going to use to attach it. So we're going to do 2 more pieces of 110-pound cardstock, and we are going to score it at 5 inches and then 10 inches, and we're going to do both of those that same way. So 5 inches and 10 inches. Five inches and 10 inches. And let's go ahead and fold and burnish these. now we have our base, and we have this flap and this flap. So now we have to create this flap. This flap is obviously 8.5 inches tall, and it's going to be about 5 inches wide. So we need to, it's also got a 1/2 inch area here so that it can, you know, handle the thickness of this. So we're going to need to trim a piece of the 110-pound cardstock to 5 inches wide by 9.5 inches tall, so that we have a 1/2 inch tab that we can attach, and then the 1/2 inch extra so that we have enough space for this. So 5 inches, and then 9.5 inches. And then again, we're going to score. And we're going to score the 1/2 inch. So that we can create a flap that will be the right size. Let's go ahead and burnish those. So now we're going to create this. So this is going to be 5 inches. But see, we don't need it to be 9.5. So we're going to cut it to 6 by 5. And 6. And then we're going to score at 5 and 5.5, so that we again have that extra space for the thickness, and then a tab to attach it. So let's burnish that. So this is going to go on here, and this is going to go on here, and then these will go one on here, and one on here. So let's go ahead and get all of these attached. I'm going to aim for right at the top. and centered as best I can. And then I'm gonna just burnish it. So there's that first part. And the last time I punched the edges, I'm not going to do that this time, but you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. I'm just going to try and keep this fairly simple. Adding some more glue. And then I'm going to press it down. That goes in, this comes down, and this comes up. So the next few things that we are going to do is actually going to be done with 65-pound cardstock, and that is the little pocket that I put here and the pull-down waterfall that we put here. So let's grab some 65-pound black cardstock. And we will put a magnet to help hold this closed. So let's take a look at our pocket that we had in this one. Just 3 3/4. So we're going to cut this to 4 1/4, and then 6, I'm just going to use this. I'm going to score it a 1/2 inch on both short sides, and then a 1/2 inch on one of the long sides. And then I'm just going to cut off these little corners. Fold and burnish along your score lines. And then this is going to become our pocket. So we made these 4 1/2 by 4 1/2. I think I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and give a little bit more space here. So I think I'm going to do maybe 3 1/2. 3 3/4. I think I'll do 3 1/2. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I might do the same amount. let's see how it goes. So I'm cutting this to 3.5. I'm doing 2 at a time because I need a bunch of these. So I'm going to do 7 of these. So that was 2. So 3.5 by 3.5, that's 4. This is 6. One more for 7. And then we're going to use this one to make our base for this. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to lay it like this, and every 1/2 inch for 7. So whenever you're making one of these pull downs, you want to score for the number of little mats that you have to put on it. So in this case I'm doing 7, so I want to score 7 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we're going to go ahead and burnish all of these. And you want to make sure that they're very flat and very straight, because this is what becomes the pull tab. So you need to make sure that it's nice and even. Once you have all of these done, you're going to go ahead and apply glue to this one first. And we're going to apply one of each of these to each section. So there's one. Two. We're just going to cut this so that there's only 1/2 inch left. So just like that. So we're also going to create a band for this, and it's going to wrap the whole way so that we can just tuck it in behind and glue it back here. You could alternately just create a band and glue it on either side instead, and that works just as well. I just like being able to show more of the paper around it. So we know that it's 3.5 inches wide. So I'm going to cut this to 8 inches, and that gives us a little bit of extra. And then I'm going to cut this to be only 1 inch wide. Because you don't want it to be too big. And I'm going to score 2 inches. And then I'm going to take the score line. So I scored this at 2 inches, and I'm going to use the score line as my guide. And I know that it has to be 3.5 inches wide, but you also need to have a little bit of excess room. You don't want a lot, but you want a little bit so that it will actually pull through. So I'm going to give it 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to score it as well. So I'm just going to fold my score lines, burnish it down, make sure that it's straight and even. And then this will become my band for this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and glue these together, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on either side. And then I'm going to push them together. You want to make sure that you don't get like a lot of excess glue, because you don't want it to like bleed through and stick. So I'm going to make sure that my seam is behind my waterfall, because that's what's going to get glued to your base. So it'll be hidden. But you have to glue this part to whatever your last one of these are. And you want to make sure that it's relatively even. So I'm just going to lift this up. I'm going to apply some glue. And again, you don't want this to bleed through. You don't want to press down and have it bleed out. Again, make sure that it's relatively even and press it down. So now, it just pulls like that. And then this piece here will be the only piece that actually gets glued down here. And this will become even more solid once we put our pattern paper on here. So those are all of our components for this. So we're gonna go ahead and add a magnet on here, because we want to be able to make sure this stays closed fairly well. So I'm actually gonna add a couple sets just to be sure. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on here first. Then I'm just going to flip this over, make sure that they're aligned and even, and then I'm going to press those down. So the only thing that we have left to do now is to cut all of our paper for these. Now when I did this one, I lined my cover with a backing of foil. I'm not going to do that for this one. I just, for my original, I wanted to give it a little bit more dimension because I used very neutral colored papers. So now we know that we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And I'll tell you why we're going to do this one the same size. Pieces of pattern paper, so 14 of them, and they're going to be 8 1/4 because this is 8 1/2, so we're going to cut them to 8 1/4 by 4 3/4 because this is roughly 5. So this one, I'm actually going to make my cover. So I'm going to cut a little bit more off this one. And I'm making it just a little bit bigger so that I can try and keep this for my cover. And then these will probably make into some tags or journaling cards or something to that effect. So I'm going to cut. Remember, the rest of these are all going to be 4 3/4. By 8 1/4. And then some of these we might be able to use on our waterfall. So there's 2 more. Or 4 3/4. 4 3/4. 8 1/4. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, that's 13. Put that aside for now. And grab this, and we're just going to decide where we want each of these things. So I think I'm going to put one of these here, and then this will lay on it, and then we can use some of these to cover these. Put one of these here. And I'll put one of these here. This here. And I think I'll put these two here. I'm going to put this on my back. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to put this on my back cover. So the reason that we cut just one for this is because we are just going to cut off the bottom to the size that we need to fit our pocket, and we'll just layer them together. So let's go ahead and get some of these laid down. So we will have more cutting to do in a little bit. So this was 3 3/4, so we are going to cut it to 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. Oh, it's already 4 3/4. I think this is up. So 3 1/2. So this will go just like this, and then this will go over top, and then this will go just like that. I'm just going to make sure that I take those off. I'm going to put an extra little bit of glue around my magnets because I just want to make sure that they stay put. And then I'm going to glue this last piece on, and we will move on to the last pieces. Okay, so we're going to need a strip for here. We're going to need our pieces for this. And then we're going to have to find some kind of closure. You don't have to use a closure. It does stay closed relatively well. You could also apply, before you obviously glue this down, you could apply some magnets here to try and hold this closed. But I'm just going to use some ribbon. So I have this ribbon. It's from Stampin' Up! From a few years ago. It's Berry Burst, so that was one of their in colors a while back. But that's what I'm going to use to close this. So I'm just going to cut off a couple pieces. It's probably longer than what I need. But I'd always rather have too much than not enough. And I am going to apply one piece here and one piece here. And to do that, I'm just going to use some double-sided adhesive. I'm going to roughly eyeball center. Remove the adhesive. Apply the ribbon. And I'm going to cut a couple pieces of adhesive right over it as well. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to take a piece, roughly center, remove the backing, attach the ribbon, and then I'm going to put a couple pieces just right over it so that I can be sure that it's going to stay. And then these will just be tied like that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these. Add a little bit of glue around it just to be sure. And then I'm going to glue this down. Remember, this wasn't cut to exactly 4 3/4 by 8 1/4 because I wanted to try and get that, keep up the good vibes. On here. I'm going to lightly press it down, and then I'm just going to flip it over like this so that I can get a little bit more pressure behind it. There we go. Alright, so we just need a piece for here and a piece for here, and we're going to cut those to 8 1/4 by about 3/4. I might go just a tad bigger than 3/4. Let's see, I have a bunch of scraps. I'm going to use this, a little bit of this, let's use this. So I'm going to do a little 8 1/4, and then a little less than 1, a little more than 3/4. And I'm going to need 2 of those. So let's go ahead and add those. bit too big. Alright, so I cut it a little bit too big. So I'm just going to cut it down a bit. Which means the one on the inside is going to be too big as well. So I'm going to cut that one down too. So let's test those. Go ahead and glue it back down as well. And again, I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue around this because I want to make sure it stays. Just gonna glue this one down as well. Okay, so we need 2 pieces for this, and for this we are going to cut it to 4 3/4. So 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. And we want to make sure that we use a paper that's going to go with this. And I think this one should be fine. Actually, I like this one better. So I'm just going to cut one piece to 4 3/4. And then 4 3/4. And another one for the inside for 4 3/4. And we're going to put another one on here. So I'm just going to remove the backing. Put a little bit of glue around it. And I'm going to glue it down. Be wary of excess glue. So there is all of that. So now we just have this last piece to do. And so we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that are going to be 3.5 by 3.5. They're going to be 3.25 by 3.25, pardon me. And then we're going to want one long strip to go on here. So let's go ahead and make that out of this. So it'll be 3. This way. 3.25. And we are going to make it 3.25 by 3.25 by 6.25. I'm just going to go ahead and glue this down. And this is the part where you really want to make sure that you don't get excess glue that squirts out, because you could end up just like that. You could end up gluing your waterfall together, which you do not want to do. So if you do get excess glue, make sure that you get it off or that it's dry before you move on. So we need 7 pieces for this. So 1, 2, I think I'm going to use these ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we just need to cut these 3.25 by 3.25. So I'm going to cut a few of these at a time. And then we just need to figure out what order we want to put these all in. So we're just going to put them together like this. As a last touch, I'm going to put a little pull tab on that. To do that, I am going to use this punch. It's a Martha Stewart punch. I've had it forever. It's a tiny, teeny, itty bitty little tag. but it works really, really well for this purpose. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of gold foil cardstock, some scrap. So I'm just going to cut two of these. I'm just going to eyeball center. So all we have left to do is attach this. And to do that, all we're going to do is put glue on the back side of this. Again, make sure that you don't get glue that squirts out, because this needs to pull through it. And there you have it. So the only thing that would be left to do would be to create some tags or bookmarks or photo mats or journaling cards or whatever it is that you want to put in here. I'm not going to do this in this video because it's entirely up to you. I would most likely make some tags, maybe some little journaling cards and whatnot out of some of the remnants that I had from the paper and just stick them in there. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope it's what everybody was expecting. And as always, if you're interested in seeing more, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Thanks everyone.